and with Messing About on the Water 2 Revelations, Messing About on the Water 2 Revelations, over to you, Matthew.
Thank you very much, Tim. I can promise indeed much less information in this speech, so if you're hoping to learn something, you might as well turn me off now. Sailing. Wave at me if you've ever done it. What we got? A few hands. Oh, a lot. Oh, this is terrible. You poor fools. Friends, I have seen the light. A month ago, I stood in this very spot and I tried capriciously, perfidiously, to persuade you that sailing was a sport you should consider. I told you about how it got you in nature. I told you about exercise. I told you about interesting racing. And I was wrong. Friends, fellow Toastmasters, welcome guests. Sailing is bad. It's not just bad, it is evil. And it must be stopped. This expiatory speech is going to come in 5 parts. The first of which is about nature. In my previous speech, those who were fortunate or unfortunate enough to attend would have seen a lovely bright graphic with the sunshine and the warmth. You may see in this other one a very different picture of sailing. Sailing in the sun might be nice, but sailing in freezing cold? Maybe not. In my last speech, I told you about seeing birds and fish. And sure, bird watching is a great thing. You know what's not great? Bird poo. Wading through the water, waist deep in it, just to try and get your poor little boat on the water. Sailing in lakes sounds nice. It does, doesn't it? But I used to sail in a disused gravel pit. Less nice. What about rivers? Well, you've got to think about the traffic. Sailing on the Thames, certainly in Oxford, is a bit less wind in the willows than it is the gust and the angry rowing crew. Okay, my number 2, exercise. I tried to claim in my frankly lunatic speech that sailing was good because it could leave you so exhausted that you couldn't walk the next day. This is nonsense. What kind of a maniac wants that? And even if you did have that kind of masochistic personality, what's wrong with running or cycling? Certainly cheaper, probably more socially acceptable. And I haven't even mentioned injuries. Do you like the sound of being bashed on the head with the boom as you tack? What about throwing yourself over the side of the boat as you try and avoid a capsize and do your back in? How about being so bashed and bumped as you barrel around the boat that you end up as one big giant walking bruise? I thought not. I haven't even mentioned my third point, which is gear. I claimed misleadingly in my speech that you could get away with buying a boat for a few £100s. It's true enough, but you could also spend upwards of £15,000 on a new one. You could spend a fortune on carbon fibre whatnots tuned to perfection. And all of that means that while you can bob about in your little boat at the back of the fleet, it will be at the back of the fleet. Sailing is a game of pay to play. And you might think, after you've spent all this money, bankrupted yourself, starved your children, gone to a workhouse, that you're done with this expenditure. But you're not, because to sail, you need a sail, and sails are very expensive indeed, and they degrade in the blink of an eye. When you get your nice stiff new sail and it crackles, that crackling is the sound of money. The first couple of times you take your sail out to the water, you might as well be bringing a wad of £5 notes and throwing them into the water. It would be just as financially prudent and arguably more fun. But at least the racing's good, right? And this is my 4th point. Well, I won't say that it's not fun sometimes to go toe to toe with somebody as you're rushing to the finish line. But that's not the majority of what the experience is like. The thing with sailing is that it's a self-policing sport. There is no referee. And that means you are left to the caprice of your fellow sailors. And this can mean it turns into a game of silly buggers more than good sportsmen. It only takes one person, in the words of everyone's teacher at school, I suppose, to ruin everyone else's fun. And they do. And that's just the people you're racing against. You have to share the water with boats that are bigger than you, faster than you, smaller than you, and slower than you. And the problem can be, depending on your point of view, sharing the water with some poxy little plastic tub that doesn't know what's good for it, or being harassed by this big showboating so-and-so who just far too self-important and who should be stopped. Don't even get me started on fishermen. It is chaos out there. All of those are pretty compelling reasons, I think, to consider my previous moronic defense of sailing completely insubstantial. But there's a more pressing reason, my friends. I have been listening to the voices in my head, and they have revealed a divine truth to me. Sailing is a cult. Think about it. It has its uniform, admittedly not so much robes that flow as smelly neoprene. It has its chants, which are less mystic so much as, "Get out of my way, I'm on starboard." And it has its symbols. Why do you think sailors sail in these complicated patterns? I can reveal the answer to this. The reason they do it, my friends, fellow Toastmasters, is that it is the symbol of the Finnish sea god, Iku Turso. I hope I pronounced that right, otherwise Sophie will come at me. This is the god, an evil octopus of war, death, disease, destruction. And what has been revealed to me is that by sailing these courses, these wicked cultists hope to bring misery to themselves and spread it to the rest of the world. It's a terrible thing. Fellow Toastmasters, a month ago, I stood before you and said, "My name is Matt, and I'm a sailorholic. Please help me to kick this dreadful habit. And whatever you do, don't go sailing."